Welcome back, lost travelers. It seems you found your way back to me once again. I am Dr. Whisper, and it looks like your next appointment has just begun. So, pour yourself something strong, grab a snack and settle down by the fire. You're going to need your strength where we're going. The Great Smoky Mountains, ancient peaks shrouded in mist, over 500,000 acres of pristine wilderness where black bears roam and elk bugle at dawn. But according to one park ranger, something else stalks these mountains. Something that walks on two legs, stands 8 feet tall and should not exist. This is the story of an encounter that would change one man's life forever. A story he kept silent about for years, afraid of ridicule, afraid no one would believe him. But the truth has a way of demanding to be told. Meet David Thornton, not his real name. He's requested anonymity, and for good reason. David spent 12 years as a park ranger in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. He knows these mountains like the back of his hand. He's tracked bears, rescued lost hikers, and spent countless nights alone in the backcountry. I thought I'd seen everything these mountains had to offer, David tells us, his voice still carrying an edge of disbelief. I was wrong. It was October 2019. David was stationed at a remote ranger cabin near Clingman's Dome, the highest point in the Smokies. His assignment was routine: monitor trail conditions, check on backcountry campers, and watch for poachers. The fall colors were at their peak, and thousands of visitors had passed through during the day. But night in the Smokies is different. When the sun sets behind those ancient peaks, the wilderness reclaims its territory. The tourist crowds vanish, the temperature drops, and you're reminded that humans are just visitors here. David had settled into the cabin for the evening, reviewing paperwork by lamplight. The nearest road was 5 miles away. The nearest town even farther. He was alone, or so he thought. Around 9 p.m., David heard something outside. At first it sounded like footsteps, heavy footsteps, but the cadence was wrong. Not the four-legged gait of a bear or deer. This was bipedal, 2 legs walking upright. I assumed it was a hiker, David recalls. Maybe someone lost, looking for help. But there was something off about the sound, the weight of it, the deliberateness. Then came the smell. David describes it as overwhelming, a putrid combination of wet dog, rotting meat, and musk so thick it seemed to coat the back of his throat. He'd smelled bear before. He'd smelled every animal in these mountains. This was different. David grabbed his flashlight and stepped onto the cabin's small porch. The beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating the tree line about 30 yards away. Nothing, just shadows and the rustling of leaves in the October wind. But then he heard it. A sound he still struggles to describe. Part growl, part guttural breathing. Low and resonant, like it came from a chest cavity, far larger than any animal he knew. The sound seemed to vibrate through the air itself. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to go back inside, David says. But I was a ranger. This was my job. I needed to identify what was out there. He called out into the darkness, no response. Just that breathing, now moving, circling the cabin. David made a decision that he now admits was foolish. He stepped off the porch, flashlight in one hand, radio in the other, and moved toward the tree line. The breathing had stopped. The forest had gone completely silent. No crickets, no owls, nothing. The kind of silence that only happens when a predator is near. That's when he saw the eyes. 2 eyes reflecting his flashlight beam. But they were high. Too high. At least 7 feet off the ground, maybe more. They glowed amber yellow in the light, unblinking, fixed directly on him. I've seen bear eyes at night. I've seen elk, deer, coyote, bobcat, everything. These were different. There was intelligence in those eyes, awareness, like it was studying me. David raised his light higher, trying to illuminate whatever was behind those eyes. And that's when it stepped forward. He describes a creature that defied everything he knew about wildlife. It stood on 2 legs, easily 8 feet tall. Its body was covered in dark, matted fur, charcoal gray to black. The shoulders were massive, broader than any man's, tapering to a narrower waist. The arms were long, hanging past where the knees would be, ending in what looked like hands not paws. But it was the head that froze David in place. Canine, wolf-like, but larger, with a longer snout and visible teeth even when the mouth was closed. The ears stood erect, pointed, tracking every movement David made. It wasn't a bear standing up, David insists. I know what that looks like. Bears are clumsy when they stand. This thing was balanced, natural, like walking on two legs was exactly what it was meant to do. For what felt like an eternity, David estimates maybe 30 seconds, they stared at each other. The creature made no move to attack. It simply watched him with those amber eyes, breathing slowly, visibly, its chest rising and falling. Then it did something that still haunts David. It tilted its head slightly, the way a dog does when it hears something interesting. A gesture so familiar, yet completely wrong on a creature that size. David began backing toward the cabin slowly, never taking his eyes off the creature. He'd been trained never to run from a predator. Running triggers chase instinct, but every fiber of his being wanted to bolt. The creature took one step forward, then another, matching David's retreat, maintaining the distance between them. I thought I was dead, David admits. This thing was massive. If it wanted to attack, there was nothing I could do. I had a radio, a flashlight, and a can of bear spray on my belt. Against something that size, useless. But the attack never came. When David reached the porch stairs, he made a decision. He stopped backing up, stood his ground, and shouted at the creature. A loud, aggressive yell that echoed through the trees. The creature's ears flattened against its skull. It opened its mouth, revealing teeth that David describes as like a wolf's but the size of a grizzly's, and released a sound he'll never forget. A howl that started low and rose to an ear-splitting pitch, unlike any wolf or coyote he'd ever heard. Then it turned and vanished into the forest, not crashing through the underbrush like a panicked animal, just gone, moving through the darkness with impossible silence for something so large. David spent the rest of that night inside the cabin, door locked, radio clutched in his hand, listening to every sound outside. He didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. Every crack of a branch, every whisper of wind through the trees made his heart race. At first light, he went outside to investigate. The ground was too hard and leaf-covered to show clear prints, but he found other evidence. Branches broken at 8 feet high, claw marks on a tree trunk, deep gouges that started 6 feet up and dragged downward, and that smell, still lingering in the morning air. David reported the incident to his supervisor, carefully describing it as a possible aggressive wildlife encounter. He didn't mention the creature's appearance, didn't mention the bipedal stance or the wolf-like head. He knew how it would sound. His supervisor's response was dismissive. Probably a bear, he was told. October's mating season. They can be aggressive. David didn't argue, but he knew what he'd seen, and it wasn't a bear. After that night, David started researching. He discovered he wasn't alone. Reports of dogman creatures, bipedal, wolf-like beings, exist across North America. Michigan, Wisconsin, Kentucky, and yes, the Appalachian Mountains, including the Great Smokies. The Cherokee, the original inhabitants of these mountains, have stories of the moon-eyed people and shapeshifters, creatures that walked between the animal and human worlds. Modern cryptozoologists call them dogmen, creatures that, if they exist, represent something science has yet to acknowledge. David found dozens of reports from the Smokies region, hikers who'd heard unusual howls, campers who'd found massive canine-like prints, and a handful of people like him who claimed to have seen the creature itself. I don't know what to call it, David says. Dogman, wolfman, whatever. All I know is what I saw was real. It was flesh and blood, standing right in front of me, and it's still out there. David left the Park Service 2 years after his encounter. He says it wasn't solely because of that night, but he admits the experience changed him, changed how he viewed the wilderness. The mountains he thought he knew so well suddenly felt unknowable, ancient, holding secrets that perhaps humans aren't meant to understand. The Great Smoky Mountains attract over 12 million visitors each year. Most see the beauty, the wildlife, the majesty of these ancient peaks. But according to David and others like him, Something else is watching from those mist-shrouded ridges. Something that walks on two legs. Something that stands 8 feet tall. Something that shouldn't exist, but does.